Escape room workers of Reddit. What's the most absurd thing players have done? Attended a Saw series themed escape room with my so and some randoms since the room required 4-6. We get locked in to start. Chained to fixtures like the dark room scene from the movie. Lights are off. As soon as the thing starts, one of the randos says, "I have a gun in case we need to shoot someone." I thought he was joking. We all did. Eventually the lights turn on and he pulls out a real gun and sits it in the sink and says, "I'm leaving the gun in the sink in case something happens to me. It's for everyone." It was nice that he planned ahead and offered it to everybody. I did an escape room with my family and the workers have to tell you not to lick the light bulb. This is because some guy thought if he licked the light bulb the answer would be revealed on the light bulb. The only answer he found was light bulbs are hot and can burn you. Donna, I think the light bulb's a clue. I'm going to lick it. A kid I knew from school. His family owns an escape room business. The worst things that happen is people trying to take things when it's clearly nailed down or nailed to the wall, and he said that a little kid peed in a bottle. Mama, it's a bottle. I wonder if it's a clue. Pee in it to find out, Jerry. Pee in it. I did an escape room with a group of friends. At the end, you found a flash drive which was supposed to be plugged into a computer. We opened the document and there were instructions to print. We got print, and the printer gave us an out of ink error. We assumed this was part of the game and started looking for a magenta cartridge. Then an employee slipped in the room, replaced the cartridge, and told us to hit print again. Apparently it was not part of the game. They just ran out of ink. So this isn't necessarily absurd on the player's side, but instead from the Gamma Master. One time our players were doing the bank heist theme, done in the dark and you have headlamps, and about 4 puzzles, and one of my employees realized they had an item in their pocket still. So we brain blasted for a couple minutes and decided the best course of action was to pretend the employee was a security guard and walk around the bank. So we went over the room intercom and warned them to hide cause it looked like the security guard was coming to them. Seeing all of the players hide in complete fear was priceless. One guy wasn't even hiding, he was just sprawled up against the wall. Our security guard walked around, said HMMPH everything seems good, and placed the item down on the desk. It was legendary that they didn't suspect anything. I went to one where there were 3 identical rooms which teams competed in at the same time. If you finished you then got to watch and listen to the other teams. Our team did pretty well and we got to watch the other 2 teams try to complete it. Anyway, there was this one lock which was a number combination and you solved it by finding some sheet music in a book with 5 notes on it, which corresponded to numbers. The piece was entitled The Key or something similar, so you knew you needed it for the lock. Anyway, this other team, instead of converting to numbers and putting in the combination, chanted this 5-note tune at the lock. When it did not work they tried again, then someone else tried. This went on for 10 minutes and got louder and louder. Eventually the game master stepped in and told them it was not going to work. Apparently they were the only team ever to do that. Ah yes, in order to unlock the lock we have to summon the Eldritch One. I once had a group of drunk guys go in and they ran through their allotted hints pretty quickly. They asked for another hint and we said over the speakers that they were out of hints. One of the guys threatened to start taking off his clothes until we gave another hint. My buddy guessed a locks combo which gave us the final clue, but we had not found the other ones. We ending up solving the room backwards. When the room administrator came in she had nothing else to say but "What the frick did you guys do?" We did the first portion of an escape room without completing one vital puzzle, which was finding the cables needed to turn the lights back on. One of them was hiding in a cereal box we hadn't checked. There were like 20-30 empty cereal boxes in the room. Mate worked at an escape room and he told me that some guys tried to smash a hole in the wall to get out because it was an Alcatraz themed room. First thing I had to learn working at an escape room. Everything, yes everything, in the room was going to be dismantled, pulled on, or messed with in some way. Have a screwdriver in the room? Maybe there's a clue in the light switch cover. Black light? Must have to take it completely apart. TV for clues? Must have to unplug, change inputs. And anything not nailed down is bound to be broken. Not terribly ridiculous, but me and the husband loved them and wanted to share our love of them with our family. When we got out of the escape room, the super amazing nuclear explosion room in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the room operator was cracking up laughing. I guess at one point, in order to get keys or clues, my over-enthusiastic husband had picked up my 8-year-old nephew by the ankles upside down and was shoving him in barrels. I had no idea he was doing this, but the operator was dying. We got a city to save, Jimmy. Your sacrifice shall not be in vain. One time, a group was trying to figure out the code to a locked compartment. So this huge guy in the group decided this was a waste of time and tried to rip off the compartment door with his bare hands. He was almost successful, but we stopped him before he could do further damage to the door. He didn't understand what was wrong. Another one happened where a group were handcuffed and they couldn't find the key. The game master was trying to give them clues to find the key, but they still couldn't find it. So one group member thought it would be best to use his leg. There was a table in the room with some items on it. He proceeded to knock over all the items with one kick. That group didn't win. Oh my god, my time has come. People do dumb crap in escape rooms constantly, but that's the whole point, and it's usually in good fun. The best part of my old escape room job was that it was literally right next door to a brothel. People would frequently come to our door not realizing that they were one door over from where they wanted to be and ask, "Hey, how much?" Me, in my customer service voice, "Well, it depends on how many people you bring. It's $40 each if you're a group of 2, and goes down to $32 each if you're a group of 8. Usually we recommend groups of 4 to 6 people. That seems to be the sweet spot. Their looks of horror will make me laugh forever." I bet people making the opposite mistake were confused too. Had a group come in. I noticed they had been drinking a little, but seemed mostly fine, so I let them into the room and start the clock. They were just wandering around. At the half-an-hour mark they were laying on the floor and rolling around. They didn't do any harm to the room. I don't remember if they even solved one puzzle. When I let them out after an hour they claimed it was fun, but they didn't really do anything. And did they remember it the next day? IDK. Somewhere there's a group of friends that love to tell about when they tried to do escape room while tripping. I work at an escape room and too many customers come to play and then put the torches in their mouth. Disgusting. We've had a couple get in the room and start to get frisky instead of playing the game. Had one who was super drunk and just started to pee in the corner of one room. Another lady who had been drinking who decided to stay in the room and puke everywhere and then put props over the top of piles of puke instead of leaving the room to go to the toilet. And many others. I don't work at one, but my co-worker went to one last year and his story was hilarious. He's a really serious guy from Boston. Got talked into going to one with his wife and a few old friends that had come down for vacation. He said as soon as they walked in he saw a broom that looked completely out of place, so he grabbed it. He thought they'd need it at some point. They made it out of the first room. They go to the second room and he's still got the broom. He swears it was just too out of place to not be part of the puzzle at some point. They make it through the second room. The third room, they get stuck. They're reading the clues over and over and he gets fixated on the broom while everyone else is searching the room. He's looking it over up and down, checking the handle for markings. Mind you, he has terrible near-sight vision, and checking the bristles. Time's running out and he's arguing with his wife at this point that the broom has the final clue. Time runs up. They walk out and the crew is just dying laughing at him. Someone left the broom by mistake. Nothing more, nothing less. He carried that dang broom through 3 rooms. He got a good laugh about it later, but he was embarrassed at the time. It was a great story he told the next morning at work. Well, to his credit, that broom was completely out of place. In the Netherlands there is this prison escape room where everyone is a prisoner and you have to escape prison. It is done in an actual ancient prison. There are about 300 participants and 85 actors, mostly prison guards and some prisoners. They have over 15 storylines which you can follow, and there are other inmates, actors, which will lead those storylines and send you one quests. Coming back to the question, at the beginning they warned everyone that no physical contact is allowed because during the first time people would actually threaten each other to get money and guards have been attacked. Also they had to warn people that you weren't supposed to try climbing the 50 feet high prison wall. I feel kinda bad about the time our group unscrewed half the pictures on the wall using a paperclip, since none of us had the sense to think that maybe the pictures being screwed down was a sign we weren't supposed to look behind them. I mean, if I worked in that escape room, I'd be hella impressed you got it all undone with a paperclip. At an escape room near me they had a group of lads on a stag do. These guys got very drunken during the escape room. Thought they could escape via the sewers. They managed to rip out the manhole cover which was bolted down into concrete. This cover is now permanently broken as it's too expensive to fix, they said. Advised us to not escape via the sewers. Holy crap, never underestimate a peed up stag do, I guess. A group came in that disassembled some of the furniture, a bed and a desk, ripped some of the wallpaper off the walls and pulled the heads off some stuffed animals. JFC, you would think not needing to destroy everything would be reasonable assumption. I interviewed for a job at an escape room. They told me that one of their standard instructions you must tell every group is to not stick things in electrical outlets because too many people did it. As players, we walk into a pirate-themed escape room. There is treasure on the floor, a can and a parrot, scattered maps, and a piano. My friend is like, oh cool, I can play some backing music. Proceeds to play Pirates of the Caribbean theme and clunk. The door unlocks and the game is over. The whole point was to solve puzzles to collect pieces of the music sheet of the theme. Best 30 seconds and €20 ever spent. Please say you got your picture taken with 030 underneath it. Obligatory, not a worker. Just done a lot of escape rooms and chatted with the staff. These are the dumbest people I've been told about. 1. One of the rooms is based on Jumanji and has a waterfall with real water in it. Enough people have tried to drink the water that they had to tell people not to in their opening spiel. 2. One of the rooms has a bunch of museum style display cases with glass covering the top with different puzzles inside. One of has sand in it and small holes in the top. Someone tried to tip the display case over and get the sand out so they could read the hidden message. When the game master told them to stop doing that, she stopped momentarily and then tried again 2 minutes later. The game master told her if she did it again she'd be kicked out and the woman said just making sure you're paying attention. 3. People constantly try to pull up floorboards or tear down wallpaper in the horror themed room, even after they're told there's nothing hidden there and warned not to do it or they'll get charged for the damage. Escape room enthusiast here. We spend far more time than I care to admit trying to figure out what the heck the numbers written in Sharpie on the underside of the rug in the middle of the room meant. Turns out they were an inventory number from the thrift store the designer bought the thing from, and nobody else had ever noticed them before. We still won, but that wasted a lot of our time. Not an escape room worker, but second time I went to one, the owner told me that once a group decided to smash all the locks because they found the hammer, on which a clue is written. They had to replace all locks and it is now a toy hammer. I'd like to say those people were morons, but when we found it the same idea was discussed in our group. Not an escape room worker, not absurd, but funny. I was at a heist themed escape room over Christmas, which featured a bit where you have to maneuver past lasers and get a diamond. If you tripped the laser the display case would close and you needed to go back to the start of the room to reset everything. After we finished the room we were told about a group of 4 elderly women who just walked through the lasers, and had one of the group stay at the beginning, resetting the trip. Absolute geniuses. I can just imagine it, the cackling as they break the system. We had a room called the prison break. The players were starting in a cell and to make it realistic, there was a toilet in there. Gladly people didn't took a pee or a dump in it but also refused to touch it, although we were giving a hint there is a hidden key by the toilet. Later in that game they had to search for a specific case file for a murderer, but they just searched for their own file as if we would put a file for every new player in there. A lot of people lost their game on that spot as it was the last quest to do. Oh god, I have a lot of stories. I worked for various escape rooms for a few years. You would be amazed at the amount of players who want to bring their own tools into the game. Screwdrivers, lockpicks, etc. You have to nail down everything too or players will absolutely destroy it. The drunker they are when they start, the worse the damage is. We once had a player literally try to tear off the drywall because they thought they had to be something behind it. In one of our rooms, We had this big heavy duty picture frame screwed into the wall with 4-inch nails and they still managed to pry it off. We've had doors taken off hinges, kids trying to crawl inside vents, the list goes on. I don't know if it counts as absurd, but one of the most unique experiences I've had, there was a wedding proposal. The guy worked it out with us ahead of time. We put the ring and a note he wrote professing his love behind some bars in the last puzzle you unlock before getting out of the room. His girlfriend actually ended up fitting her hands between the bars and got the note way early, but the guy was still running around trying to solve stuff because he didn't notice, and she was sitting there reading it starting to bawl. She said yes BTW. I was a player and I was in a large cage. Through the bars I had to open a heavy lock. The cage was dimly lit with LED bars on the floor. I got the lock open, but due to it being heavy and me having to handle it through the bars, I dropped it on the LED bar. At first I thought the light turning off was part of the room. Turns out I broke the LED bar. Finally, a question I can answer. Most of the time people are just plain stupid, which can be fun and frustrating depending on how the people react to realizing it. It's very annoying when the people are cocky beforehand and then don't manage anything without a hint and somehow blame us for messing up. There's also been instances of people throwing up or trying to use the prop toilet inside of one of the prison cells, but I think my favorite absurd thing was the one proposal I had while I worked at an escape game. You might think, well, isn't that romantic? And I thought so too, until I found out that escape rooms aren't just something they both love that makes the proposal unique. It was the first room ever. Never played an escape game ever. Weird choice of scenery to propose. Even weirder when you consider that they took 2 friends with them. But it doesn't end there. They barely managed to get out and the ring was hidden in the very last clue, so if they hadn't managed, crap would have become very awkward. It did anyway, because when he proposed, neither of their friends really reacted to it, just stood there blankly. Which was made even worse by the fact that the guy was supposed to film the whole thing, which he didn't, and the other girl didn't even know he was proposing, so the surprise at least should have coerced a smile out of her. Nothing. The proposal speech was also delivered with as much passion as a paper bag, and as it turned out the dude told everyone at the reception that he didn't really want to marry her, at least not for the time being. But she got pregnant, so now it kind of pushed him into it. She said yes, but holy crap, all of us watching were hoping she wouldn't. Now imagine proposing, or even worse being proposed to, in an escape room, knowing you are being watched and listened to through cameras. What an absurd choice to make. I think it was pretty poetic if you take into account he feels trapped into it by her being pregnant. Pulled the air vent covers off the walls floor. Had to add in an official disclaimer in the rules spiel I did before they went in the room. No clues in the air vents. My dad owns an escape room in a small town in Norway, and the weirdest thing someone has done is probably trying to punch the camera. The guy was like 150 centimeters tall and couldn't reach it. After trying 3 times to punch it, he gave up. Not a worker, but was with a group of people, and one of them became so overwhelmed that almost immediately after walking in, they spun around and walked right back out again. Guess he won. Oh my god, finally a question for me. So I'm usually not cruel with my escapees. If I see them looking at the serial number for a prop, I usually send them a message saying that they have a good eye, but it won't be relevant to the room. The biggest thing that happens is couples doing the room and fracturing under the slightest bit of pressure. I've legit had people break up in the room because they couldn't handle working through stress together. One time a couple said they were done and kept doing the room, which was extremely awkward for me, who was the poor sap who had to watch them for an hour. Once did an escape room with work. One in Birmingham, UK. Sherlock Holmes themed room. I walk in last, spot a flat cap on the door, and, as I have an innate need to wear any hat I find, I stuck it on my head. 25 minutes later we still haven't cracked the first clue, which requires us to find a key. You'll know where this is going. We asked for help. The detective likes his hat. Lo and behold, the first clue has been on my head for almost half the allotted time. I bet that made you real popular at the office. Obligatory, not an escape room worker, but participant. Once I went to an escape room with my mom, dad, mom's BFF, and her 2 sons. The premise of the room was a bank heist. We start off trying to break in from a small room after solving the clues there. Afterwards we go to another room via the bricks in the wall, solve the clues there, open the vault, Take as much as we can. Meanwhile the alarm starts to blare and we need to get out quickly via another brick wall. In the second room, there were a couple of murdered dummies and an actor who was playing dead. He was the one who sounded the alarm after we managed to break into the vault. Well, everyone was trying to get into that aforementioned vault. I was sitting there with my empty money bag and decided to loot the dead bodies, including the actor, either for more clues or valuables. We were pretending to be robbers, after all. Full stop. Sadly, all of the bodies had nothing on them. After all is over and done with, we took the money bags and managed to bolt. We sit there and talk about the room, pretty thrilled. That was when the GM comes, laughing his butt off, in tow with the actor, who looks pretty bewildered. What they told us was that during the 3 years at the time this escape room was created, nobody had tried to frisk the bodies, not to mention so thoroughly. I checked every pocket, even took the shoes off the dummies. Didn't go that far with the actor, though. I felt really bad. I didn't realize the actor wasn't a dummy. He was laying on his face during the heist, and I didn't take his shoes out because I noticed the paper with the code on a shelf close to the body. I was mortified. I had checked even his back pockets. My group was freaking laughing their butts off. Guy was pretty young too, and new in this job, so I guess we were both pretty embarrassed. I'll weigh in with my mildly amusing escape room anecdote. Not that absurd, more anticlimactic. This was actually a break-in format where you were supposed to recover some locked up MacGuffin. We were really close and the next step evidently was to unlock a door. We solved the puzzle that we figured would allow us to do this, but then when we tried the door, it wouldn't open. So for the remaining 15 minutes or so, we scrambled frantically looking for more clues to figure out how to open this dang door, but failed. When we asked about it afterwards, the guy was confused because the last puzzle we solved was the one that should have opened the door. After some back and forth, it turns out, the door just has a bit of a funny handle. Not part of the puzzle in any way, just a door that works different from what you're used to. That's all that stood between us and sweet victory. Escape room enthusiast, but a group of me and my friends did a zombie style one. Basically, the chain gets longer every 5 minutes or so and if he touches someone they have to stay in the corner and can only verbally help. Me and one other friend spent most of our time dancing very badly to distract the zombie while our friends stole clues from nearby. Props to zombie guy for staying in character, and our handler told us no one had ever done that before. That actor was probably really enjoying the improv opportunity. The clue was hidden in a computer, but the keyboard was hidden in the escape room somewhere. Knew that Windows had an on-screen keyboard, so logged in with that instead of finding the physical keyboard. Hackerman over here, SMH. So we have a strip club themed room and the craziest group had one drunk dude who asked me if I would give him an extra clue if he showed me his dong. My manager said to allow it and he actually flashed his dong on camera, lol. Not a worker, but when I went one of my friends was convinced that the clue was in the lighting fixture 10 feet off the ground. They ended up picking up the coat rack, which also wasn't a part of the game, and smashing it into the light. The clue wasn't there. We got broken glass all over the floor and were immediately asked to leave. Thanks a lot, Jane. I'm not an escape room worker, but I went to a horror-based escape room once where we had a certain amount of time to complete it or one of the workers would come and dressed up to frighten us and tell us that we had lost. When we entered one of the rooms we saw that there was a shelf full of old VHS tapes of different movies, one of which was related to the escape room. So we put it on the VHS player, got some clues and continued to investigate, but we came to a halt when we began to run out of time. One of my friends I was with in the escape room had the great idea of trying the rest of the VHS tapes. Most of them were blank, but suddenly one of them started playing a slightly broken children's movie that wasn't at all related to the escape room. And we started to panic because we couldn't take the tape out or turn it off, and suddenly we hear one of the workers who was monitoring us and had a speaker connected to our room laugh his butt off like I haven't heard anyone before at these. Dumbass scared as frick 15-year-old watching a distorted children's movie in a dark, scarily decorated room. The guy felt so bad he gave us extra time, I suspect to see more of our frickups, before giving us a scare. I was the player here. This was a horror-themed escape house with people in costumes screaming at you from time to time with chainsaws and crap. We were in a room with an open jail cage and we knew the next clue was in that cage, but it's pretty obvious that cage was designed to scare the crap out of whoever was inside. I waltzed in, the cage door slammed shut behind me. I took the note and slipped myself out between the bars. We waited for several minutes until I slipped back into the cage so the game could progress. Later on, the workers told us they were really surprised when I had slipped out of their trap and were trying to figure out what to do next. Not a worker, but a participant. My friend thought the solution to a puzzle was to press on the corners of several framed pictures in a specific sequence. The box wasn't unlocking itself from what he thought was the correct solution, so he pressed on the corners harder. Needless to say, one of the frames broke and the glass panel covering the picture fell out and shattered on the ground. We had to call the workers in to help clean up the glass shards. Didn't get in any trouble and we ended up escaping the room though. 1. Break the glass. 2. Call for help cleaning up. 3. Threaten workers with glass shard. 4. Escape. Hey, one I can answer kinda. I was the dude in the room. It was my first 10-year-old brother's birthday party and children are dumb AF. It was themed around a nuclear power station that was gonna blow up the town. And essentially what happened was we had an hour to complete 3 rooms. We took 45 minutes to get through the first because kids kept throwing stuff around. One guy got freaked out thinking it was real and pressed a button to end the room. Thankfully it didn't work or something and my dad shouted at him, so he took a tantrum and freaking locked himself in a drawer. Then because the kids can't organize crap we had to hunt for the most stressful 3 minutes of my life for the key. And then we got through and it was sorta okay from there cause a lot of kids up and left the room. Never again. Never, ever, again. I'm kind of impressed with the kid who locked himself in a drawer. A stupid decision to be sure, but hilarious still. My friends and I climbed up a shaft only to find a dead end. In our defense, there was a clue talking about going up. We just somehow missed the elevator shaft and instead boosted each other up a hole in the ceiling. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.